Tell me all that I've done wrong when I've known this all along. Go, go around a time or two just to waste my time with you. Tell me all that you've thrown away. Find out games you don't wanna play. You are the only one that needs to know. I'll keep you my dirty little secret, dirty little secret. Don't tell anyone or you'll be just another regret, just another regret. Hope that you can keep it, my dirty little secret. Who has to know when we live such fragile lives? It's the best way we survive. Go around a time or two just to waste my time with you. Tell me all that you've thrown away. Find out games you don't wanna play. You are the only one that needs to know. I'll keep you my dirty little secret, dirty little secret. Don't tell anyone or you'll be just another regret, just another regret. Hope that you can keep it, my dirty little secret. Who has to know the way she feels inside? Those thoughts I can't deny. These sleeping dogs won't lie. And now I try to lie, it's eating me apart. Trace this life out. Hello, everyone. Now that was the mystery banjo song of the week, I guess. I posted a video on Facebook seeing if anyone could guess what the song was just from me playing the slightly adjusted version to fit the banjo, but nobody was able to come up with the correct answer. There were some valiant efforts. I heard Freebird, I heard Somewhere Over the Rainbow. None were fairly close in my eyes, but I'm applauding anyone for participating. So I will try and keep this stream relatively short and sweet, but I did want to point something out. So good news, everyone! I've actually started work on my new task for the AI. I have my routine checklist going on. It's relatively small right now. I plan to add a couple more things to it, but I'll keep that in front of me so I can reference it. That'd probably be smart. So I have mentioned in past streams what I plan to be doing in the next step of working with the AI, but I haven't really gone into that much depth on what will be different with how the AI will be working. So my 4 checkpoints, bullet points here that I have in the checklist are that I need to restructure the if statements. So in the current model, the AI creates a structure of essentially what is the DNA of the program, and what it does is it uses that structure to create if statements. And if you don't know what if statements are in programming, an if statement is basically a conditional statement. So you take something like, if this variable value is greater than 6, then do this. That's what an if statement essentially is, except more generalized to any circumstance. So it's creating these if statements that allow it to dynamically analyze the situation and apply the correct maneuvers or do the right action for the task at hand. And but in order to make this new task, which if you haven't recalled or if you never heard in the first place, what the new task is, it's a data mining task. So essentially it is scanning through a big pile of data, so a bunch of statistics, and it's creating a model, which is just a formula where you can plug in uh, a bunch of other variables and achieve one variable. And so it's maybe for something that if there's a variable that's relatively difficult to go and search for, or something like that, then you can use the other variables to predict what that variable will be. Or if it's something that's relatively dependent on things, then you can use that as a predicting factor. The one I use as an example is usually like deciding whether a customer will come back in the future or something like that, based off of how much they spent, how old they were, a bunch of different factors. And so, and then if you have that statistic and you find the people who are sitting on the fence that are like 50-50, maybe they'll come back, then those are the people that you could send a promo to and be like, hey, here's a buy one, get one free burrito. And then they come back because you pushed them over the edge. Um, but so in order to do this new task of creating a model, it these individual units of the DNA don't necessarily just need to be if statements. They need to be pieces of a formula. And so in order to do that, I think that it'll be better to just have a situation where it can either be a simple action like add this variable to what you already have, or a conditional action like if this variable is over a certain metric, then add it to what you already have. So this is what I'm playing around with. It should be relatively simple compared to the previous set of if statements. Because the previous if statements were expandable. You could have many different conditions within that if statement in order to comply with the needs of the task at hand. But since the task at hand is to simply create a formula, if each individual part of the formula is relatively simple. It could just be like x squared or something like that. So if that's all that it needs to figure out, it doesn't need to figure out how many elifs or else statements it needs, because all it needs to say is take the x value and square it or something like that. So that's why I need to restructure the if statements. The next bullet point is to obviously convert the ball drop task to the new DNA reading task, because I'm using the deep learning ball drop program as a skeleton for the new task. I am implementing some of the aspects from the environment task, and those aspects are the fact that I want the child function to just be the child program to just be one program that's reading the DNA, and not necessarily a program that has the DNA written into it already, because that's what the ball drop program does. The parent program writes a new program every time it goes in to the child program. So it's writing that child program and then it runs it, and that everything is hard coded in, which is really inefficient, and it also limits what I can do later. But so that's what I'm looking into doing. It should be relatively simple of a change. I just need to take the sections of the parent function of the parent program in the environment project, and just convert it for the numbers that are necessary with the ball drop project. And then, so my third bullet point is to create an initial data set, and this is an important step, but it should be relatively simple. I need to create a data bank for this model making AI to mine through. It's an important step because what the task is going to be based on, and it's how the AI will check if the model is getting better. And so what I mean by that is when it creates this formula in order to predict a value, then it needs to go through and maybe 1,000 times over check if that just plug numbers into the formula, see what comes out, and then check how far away that is from the actual value that it should be getting. So what I'm thinking of doing for the initial testing is actually just making a formula up out of my head, like a bunch of terms. So like x squared plus cosine of y minus the natural log of z, and then uh, equals f of x, y, and z. And so f of x, y, and z will be the number that it's trying to create the function for, and then x, y, and z will be the variables that are plugged in. But I'm imagining that it'll be better to have a lot more variables to play with, just so it can weed through those, because that's an important thing. Is the AI has to figure out which variables are important, and so that's something I'll go over more when I'm actually making the adjustments to the AI. But having that data set is important so that the AI can go through and actually take the numbers, just randomly select numbers from the data set, plug them in, and see how they compare, how its answer compares with the actual answer. And so the fourth point I have is to expand the mutations of the deep learning to include more functions. So, like I was saying, if we have these cosines, these natural logs, these sines, and whatever functions, maybe to the power of n, like I had said in the past, these functions can be approximated, but it would be very difficult for the AI to get there. And I think it's kind of not worth it in a sense to force the AI to focus on approximating these functions every single time when we already have these functions available in every programming language. So I think that what I will do is when it goes to that mutate option, it will either have the option to mutate a single variable to be something like cosine of x, or mutate into a combination of two variables, which is what we already had working in the data mutation. But the that mutation was only limited to plus minus multiply and divide. So this is a relatively limited thing, and like I said, you could create these larger functions and through possibly Taylor series approximate the other functions like cosine and natural log or EBX. But it's just kind of it's kind of wasting time in a sense, and because this AI is already relatively slow compared to more specific things. This is supposed to be something. It's supposed to be an algorithm that can do anything in a sense, but it may not be the fastest thing at doing any individual thing, any individual task. So, but I believe this data mining task will be something that it's actually fairly good at. Another big plus for the data mining task is that compared to something like the ball drop task or the environment task, the both of those in their testing phase, they have to run like 100 ticks, and so they have to run 100 ticks or even more in some cases. In the ball drop task, it's just as long as the game is played. So if the ball drop keeps being successful, then it'll keep playing it. But in testing the new function it's creating for the data mining task, all it has to do is plug in numbers, receive a result, subtract the result from the actual one, and then square it or something like that, just to keep everything positive. And that's all something a computer can do extremely fast. So this should be something where um, if I set it so that once it hits like 95% accuracy, it just stops. I'm estimating that it won't take more than 4 hours to get there. And that might be even an exaggeration. Now, I could be completely wrong. It all depends on how well I pull this off. But I'm hoping that the AI will be able to get to an answer, which is something I haven't implemented in the other tasks just because I don't necessarily know what a good answer looks like in those tasks. But in a formula, if I have it so that the AI is spitting out some statistics on its own formula saying this is 80% accurate and and whatnot, and then it shows the actual formula, it could just go very fast without any interruption, and then just say, "Here's the answer I got to," for a 95% confidence, or not, maybe not necessarily confidence. That's specific to statistical term, but um, with 95% accuracy, that's a better term. It will spit out the correct answer in of the model. So that's something I'm gonna have to play around with the numbers. I'm not necessarily sure what people consider an accurate model. I know in science you want it to be extremely accurate, but in terms of social sciences, like perhaps um, deciding whether someone's coming to a football game, things that have to deal with this big data, there's so many variables that it may be more acceptable to have some sort of maybe like an 80% accuracy. So it might be something that I have to look into. If you guys have any suggestions on those numbers, I'm completely open to suggestions, or even if you have sources that you can send me in the right direction, I will definitely look at those if you post them in the comments. But that's the general overview of what I have to talk about. I will be streaming Saturday. I believe. I don't have anything planned at the moment. Um, I'm thinking about having one topic that's math related, possibly dealing with limits, and then another topic that is just something I've been tossing around in my head and should be kind of a fun topic. Um, but I'll leave that to be a surprise. But that's what you have to look forward to, and I look forward to you coming on and watching the stream with me on Saturday. So I want to thank you guys for watching if you have been, and I want to thank you guys for watching if you're watching later on the page. Um, but I will see you guys on Saturday.